First, I would like to thank everybody for 100 subscribers. I'm not gonna do the YouTuber thing where I'm like, oh my god, I never thought I could have got here. Which, I mean, frankly, 100 subscribers, I'm very grateful for. But come on, I'm Tetrafolium. I deserve about 1,000. Come on. um, yeah, very arrogant note to start off on for a very weird video that we're about to do. So let's start with the intro as normal. Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and I'm here to talk about Electabuzz in ADV OU. I have not pivoted to UU, okay? Just let me get that out of the way. Not that I'm never interested in playing UU, I just have so much more to explore in OU, I'm not ready to pivot yet. In any case, Electabuzz, probably not a Pokemon you were expecting, but this is my 100 subscriber special, you could call it, that is responding to that poll that I put out on my channel where most of you said you wanted to see a video on an unranked Pokemon. And I thought to myself, wow, I hope they pick a highly ranked Pokemon because I have no idea what unranked Pokemon I'm going to pick. But I was scrolling through some ideas, and Electabuzz is the Pokemon that I landed on that I thought maybe this could work, and I think it did better than I expected. So let's go on to the viability rankings. Let's not waste too much time here because clearly Electabuzz is not on here. Let's check out an extended ranking list that you might have seen from my Scizor video. Is this the ADV Google Sheets viability rankings? I don't know if there's like a better name for it than this, but I guess I'm gonna refer to it as this. I'd like to credit Gold Mason for posting it in the Smogon forums, although I don't believe that Gold Mason was the person who put this together, at least not entirely. So I don't want to incorrectly attribute it to Gold Mason if somebody else is more appropriate to attribute it to. But as far as, I don't know who exactly put it all together. In any case, there are lots of great players like McMegan, ABR, Bedummy, I think Fradazi as well, who contributed to this and had a lot to say about a lot of different Pokemon. As you can see, Pokemon like Ursaring and Arcanine are being considered. So where does Electabuzz fall on this? Well, let me explain who all we're contending with before I tell you where Electabuzz is. If taken at face value, Arcanine is who is the lowest ranked Pokemon on this Google sheet, would be 75th. There are some RUBL Pokemon like Ninjask and Jumpluff, some RU Pokemon like Camerupt, Banette, and Poliwrath, and some NU Pokemon like Glalie, Sableye, Roselia, and Wailord, who are all ranked on this list. And Electabuzz, a UU Pokemon, is not. This kind of goes to show that just because a Pokemon is a lower tier than another doesn't mean that it can't thrive in a different metagame. We see this a lot in modern gen Pokemon, where there have been stints where Blissey and Clodsire have been really bad, but there's still some of the best Pokemon in Ubers because the traits that they have fit that metagame really well, even though they may not fit OU. So take Electabuzz, for example. Electabuzz has some traits that make it phenomenal in UU, but those traits are not as valuable in OU, and we're going to talk about why. So the first thing, and this is what I think makes Electabuzz such a great Pokemon to do for this 100 subscriber special, is because I can literally steal a lot of the work that I've already done to construct this narrative. So you can call me lazy. I call myself resourceful. But these are the electric types of ADV OU: Raikou, Zapdos, Jolteon, and Magneton. And here are their special attack and speed stats, which are the two most important stat for an electric type. I guess, its bulk matters maybe a little bit. If it has a good attack stat and can do mixed attacking, that's also, valuable, but these are the two money makers right here. You want fast, strong Thunderbolts, or Thunders if you're of that persuasion. So really internalize this, because we're going to add Electabuzz to it. Electabuzz, uh, here, just take a guess and don't look too much at the color coordination to spoil it, but take a guess where Electabuzz's special attack and speed stats lie. Okay, let's reveal it. Base 95 and base 105, respectively. 105 is actually pretty good. That's faster than Zapdos. 95 is by a pretty significant margin the worst special attack, though. Even Jolteon, who kind of gets criticized for having a low special attack stat by comparison to these other ones, it's still a good deal higher. Let's take a look at what those translate to in terms of investment. So we hit 339 at max speed, which is pretty good. You'll get past things like a modest Raikou or Starmie. You'll get past a +1 adamant Tyranitar, after his Dragon Dance boost, right? Jolly will get faster than you, unfortunately. You'll also be faster than some of the Gengar sets that don't opt to go for max speed. So there's a lot of good things in there, not to even mention, again, like all the other base 100s that you're faster than. And you don't even need necessarily to go timid because you're faster than so many other key aspects. Like you could be faster than a timid Moltres by going to 307. You could be faster than all the base 100s that don't run a speed boosting nature, which many of them don't. So all of that is achievable with modest, so we can get to 317, which is a pretty good special attack stat. Not quite as good as some of the others. Jolteon with timid nature is still stronger than Electabuzz with a modest nature, and I think the biggest takeaway here is that despite being faster than Zapdos, I don't know how I flubbed that one, Electabuzz is weaker than both Raikou and Jolteon, and who are also both faster than Zapdos. You could, if you really wanted Electabuzz for a special attacker with some speed, you could just run a modest Jolteon or a modest Raikou instead. Now, granted, there are definitely benefits to running Timid with those two, but it stands to reason that if you were going to have Electabuzz on the team, you could just do Jolteon or Raikou instead. Oh, also, the big thing with electric types is this guy. And Raikou, Magneton, and Electabuzz are supremely scared of Dugtrio because it traps and eliminates them very easily with an Earthquake. And none of them, potentially Magneton, if you're running modest with HP Grass or HP Ice, threaten to even kill Dugtrio back. So that's quite scary. Jolteon and Zapdos, of course, are not that scared of Dugtrio. Zapdos, being a flying type, can just switch. It is also immune to Earthquake, so it could also just stay in if it wants to. And Jolteon is usually faster and can run Baton Pass to get out of Arena Trap. Electabuzz is kind of getting a lot of the worst elements of being an electric type in ADV without having so many of the benefits. Its speed stat is definitely of note, don't get me wrong, but let's continue on. So yeah, you might be wondering then, why would I use Electabuzz over a different electric type, which is a great question. But I will use my Blaziken video to sort of explain this. So here is what I deemed the perfect coverage. This is going to hit over 80% of D-ranked or higher Pokemon, which is going to include all of the OUs and a handful of UBL Pokemon. I think that this coverage is really good. I haven't run the numbers too much, so that it's possible that you could get a slightly higher number of Pokemon hit with a configuration of 4 different types, but I'm going to show you a different configuration of 4 types, slightly, that hits a lot of Pokemon as well. So here I deem this the perfect coverage version 2, and we'll see if it actually is better than the perfect coverage. So first, let's start with fighting, which is really good. It hits a lot of key Pokemon, primarily Tyranitar, Blissey, and Snorlax. Those are the ones that matter the most. Magneton and Smeargle are a little bit incidental. Then let's go on to Grass, which hits Swampert really nice. Swampert is a very difficult Pokemon to break through, but it has the 4 times weakness to Grass, so that hammers it harder than any of the other potential moves you could hit, at least in a vacuum. You know, if you have a really strong Choice Banded, Stab, Double Edge from Snorlax or something, then yes, that probably hits harder than Snorlax would hit with HP Grass, but I digress. And you might be looking at this and you might be saying, hey, wait a minute, there are more fighting and grass weeks than you labeled here. And that you might be thinking, did I miss something? But actually, I want to use this as an opportunity to outline a very commonly talked about coverage combination, Bolt Beam. Bolt Beam refers to having an electric and ice type move on the same Pokemon. It could be Thunderbolt and Ice Beam, which is what this coverage is named after, but more broadly it could refer to any electric type move and any ice type move. So, for example, Thunder and Ice Punch, or I don't know, Thunder Punch and Hidden Power Ice. Those would be considered Bolt Beam coverage as well. If you're in modern gens, Supercell Slam and Ice Spinner on your Great Tusk, which is not a real set, but a set that I believe somebody just used in my draft league that I run, it was really cool to see that. But in any case, let's talk first about electric coverage. How many Pokemon do you think get hit by super effective for electric? Well, think about how many flying types and water types there are in this generation. So I'll give you a second to just think. Did you expect 9? And it's not 9 inconsequential Pokemon either. Skarmory, Suicune, those are huge to be able to hit, but it's really nice to hit Starmie and Milotic as well. Those are Pokemon that can be difficult to break through, especially their defensive sets. So having the coverage to hit them, especially stab coverage, is really good. But we're still missing a lot of Pokemon, primarily some ground types that, yes, while many of the ground types are weak to grass, we would like to hit them with a slightly harder move if we could, and Ice will achieve that for us. So let's see. 7 Pokemon weak to Ice. That's a lot. Celebi is a Pokemon that's pretty difficult to hit, despite having so many weaknesses. So Stab Ice would be really nice. Now granted, Electabuzz does not get that, but it also doesn't have to rely on HP Ice, which is a pretty heavy commitment because most Pokemon really want HP Grass to be able to hit Swampert, right? It also, its coverage move, Ice Punch, is a little stronger than HP Ice, so we're hitting Celebi a little bit harder, which is really good. But also, Salamence and Flygon being ×4 weak to Ice, those are Pokemon that you really would like to have Ice coverage for. It's why electric types will opt to, or the OU ranked electric types, I should say, like Zapdos, Jolteon, Raikou, will opt to run HP Ice instead of HP Grass, even though with HP Ice they basically get walled by Swampert, and with Thunderbolt they still have a stab neutral hit to click against Salamence. Being able to just one-shot Salamence is really important. It's also really important to not be walled by Flygon if you happen to end up against a Flygon team, although Flygon is a little less common than the other two, so it's sometimes seen as an acceptable sacrifice to not be able to hit Flygon, at least not for super effective damage. So how many is this total? It's 22 out of the 31, which is just over 70%. Not quite as high as the other coverage that I talked about, but it's still pretty good. And it hits a lot of the key Pokemon. Yeah, you would like to be able to hit the Steel types, maybe. So if we could switch, say, Grass for Ground, we would hit more Pokemon. Still not more than the perfect coverage that I talked about in my Blaziken video. But like that would hit a lot of key Pokemon as well. But missing out on Swampert is a big deal for Pokemon that don't have like the means to boost their attacking stat to overcome Swampert's phenomenal mixed defense. In any case, let's see who gets this coverage, and I'm just going to ignore Rock Smash off the bat because that would add so many more Pokemon, and I just don't, like, we're going to eliminate them anyway because Rock Smash is a 20 base power move. Like, come on, it's terrible. So here we go. This is the breadth of Pokemon. This is every Pokemon ranked UU or higher. So there are 5 OU ranked Pokemon. Breloom kind of sneaks in with a really weird way. It's like, because it has Giga Drain, because it has stab fighting moves, and I believe a coverage Thunder Punch, it can opt to run HP Ice and have this mixed coverage. So that's kind of cool. Electabuzz, as we see, is in the UU tier, right next to Muck, who was a Pokemon that, you know, a lot of people want to hear about Muck, and that's because Jimothy has put a lot of eyes on Muck, and deservedly so. It's a pretty cool Pokemon, but come on, it would be so lame of me to do a Muck video. You already seen a lot about Muck, or at least do it right now. And until I have something cool to say about Muck, I'm not doing a Muck video. In any case, the breadth of these Pokemon is really interesting. A lot of normal types, as you would expect, because normal types get a lot of coverage. And some weirdos like Medicham and Machamp who get the elemental punches, although neither of them is very good at using them. And I think this is where I'd like to start. Because we have Bolt Beam coverage, we want to be a primarily special attacker. So I'm going to eliminate all the Pokemon that don't have at least a base 80 special attack stat. Yeah, and that eliminates a lot of them. Blissey, I mean, you could argue that I shouldn't eliminate Blissey, because even though it only has a special attack stat, I believe, of 75. Let me check just to make sure that I'm not spreading misinformation on the internet. That's right, 75. That it so commonly invests all the way that it doesn't feel like it's only a 75. Also, it has Calm Mind and tons of bulk to be able to get Calm Minds off. So, in reality, Blissey is maybe a little bit better than I'm giving it credit for. But whatever. You're not using Brick Break on Blissey anyway, so this is kind of a moot point. So yeah, there are a lot of Pokemon here that are still around. The Gardevoir and Alakazam are two pretty notable ones. I don't know if I would recommend using like a Magical Leaf HP fighting Gardevoir, which is what you would require to get this coverage. And I also don't know if I would recommend like Focus Punch Alakazam, although it could be kind of interesting. You could do kind of like what Gengar does in luring in Tyranitar, thinking that it's going to be safe just for it to get blown up by a Focus Punch. Could be kind of cool. But yeah, there's some cool guys on here, but we need to eliminate more. And I think one of the big ways we're going to eliminate these is we want to be faster than base 100. And that's going to eliminate a good majority of the rest of the Pokemon there. So we're left with 4. Gengar, Sceptile, Alakazam, and Electabuzz. So Electabuzz is in rarefied air here, good company. Let's see what each of them has as an advantage here. So Gengar, it's got some really unique defensive traits thanks to being a poison type with Levitate. Also being a rare, like really good ghost type is instrumental in stopping Rapid Spin and keeping spikes up on your opponent's side of the field. It has an amazing moveset and EV variety. You can do a lot of things with Gengar, and if you're just limited to the even just limited to the standards being offensive and defensive, you can get a lot of mileage out of that. But you can even experiment and come up with some of your own sets. Like Gengar is like top maybe like 2 or 3 most customizable Pokemon in this tier. It arguably is number 1. So it's definitely got its place in OU for a reason. Sceptile, I'm gonna put some respect on Sceptile. It's got the strongest grass coverage out of all 4 of these, thanks to having Stab and also Leaf Blade, which is a pretty uncommon move, and the envy of pretty much every grass type to have a base 90 Stab in this generation. It's got the highest attack stat of all of these, so attack stat matters, right? Because we want to use fighting type moves to help us out. And it also has Pursuit, which is a really valuable move and pretty underrated option for Sceptile. Granted, Sceptile is not the strongest on the special side. It is a little stronger than Electabuzz, for example, but it maybe doesn't quite get the kills that it wants on like Gengar, and also being a pure grass type means that Gengar might be incentivized to stay in and click Ice Punch against it, or Fire Punch if it has that. So I don't know if it's necessarily the best Pursuit Trapper, but it could be kind of nice into like Starmie or Claydol, which want to switch out against it. Alakazam has the highest special attack. It has some really good speed, same as Sceptile at 120. And I guess they're tied for being the fastest because Gengar is only at 110. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of good for Alakazam. I guess I should note before I move on from Sceptile too far, if you run Pursuit, you're not getting the coverage total, but having it as an option is pretty threatening. It makes it hard for Starmies to make a decision against, or like Claydolls to make a decision against Sceptile, whether they want to stay and take a Leaf Blade, switch out, take a Pursuit. And then Electabuzz has the best electric coverage, while all of them get pretty strong options like Thunderbolt and Thunder. I believe Sceptile is limited to Thunder Punch. Alakazam is probably also limited to Thunder Punch. I don't think it gets Thunderbolt. Electabuzz having the Stab is overcoming the difference in special attack. But I will also say that that's kind of it. It's not even the fastest out of these 4, which is a little bit sad. It doesn't have the best attack stat either. It's at a base 83, whereas Sceptile's at a base 85. So that's not phenomenal. It doesn't have like very notable defensive capabilities. Its physical defense is really bad. It's actually worse than Gengar's, I believe. Let me check that again. Make sure I'm not spreading misinformation. Nope, that is 100% accurate. Gengar's got a base defense of 60. Electabuzz has a base defense of 57. So Alakazam might be worse. Okay, Alakazam's sitting at a crisp 45, so we're a little bit more defensive than Alakazam, but that is not an accomplishment, not by any means. So yeah, let's move on. Does all of this justify using Electabuzz and OU? I mean, I talked about by comparison, there are a lot of Pokemon that do what it does, or some of the traits that it does better. but it has some unique qualities, right? Maybe that makes it worth using, but no, I don't think that this is just enough to justify Electabuzz. It is sitting at a kind of interesting intersection of a lot of traits, but I don't know necessarily if that is valuable enough, like having that intersection or these intersections, to justify viability in OU. I mean, one thing that it is kind of good for is that as an electric type, it is extremely rare to be able to hit all of Tyranitar, Salamence, and Swampert with one moveset. Like, not a lot of Pokemon will get a move that hits Tyranitar super effective, and Salamence super effective, and Swampert all in one set, especially not electric types, because electric types have notoriously bad coverage. All of the other OU electric types have to run Hidden Power to even have a second move. So, and Electabuzz having Ice Punch and other moves that we will discuss, or really one other move that hits Tyranitar really hard. Like, you don't get that on other electric types. So, like, this is kind of cool. It's unique in that it's the only electric type that gets all of these. Well, except for Lantern. But Lantern is slower than Metagross, so we're going to use Electabuzz anyway. It is really funny, though, that arguably this niche is not even quite unique or that Electabuzz is the best at it. Yeah, but let's look at some standard Electabuzz sets. These are the Electabuzz sets that you will see in the OU section for it on Smogon. That being said, it's kind of hard to call them standard because Electabuzz is certainly not a standard Pokemon. We have a kind of interesting set, which I think it could be usable in this support one with Light Screen, Counter, and potentially Toxic. Also potentially Ice Punch. I think that's really cool. This combination, it's definitely not expected, and ideally you could come in, threaten a Thunderbolt, get up a Light Screen, and potentially counter anything that does a lot of damage to you. Like, say for example, Snorlax wants to come in because it's like, I don't take any damage from Thunderbolt, and it can body slam you or return or whatever, or even Earthquake, and you can go for a counter to stop it. That being said, it's a little bit of a weird set. You're going to want to run Bold if you're trying to get past certain like thresholds. Like, a lot of Pokemon's Earthquakes, even if they're not stab, are threatening to one-shot Electabuzz because it has such a low defense stat. But you could run Bold to kind of get out of range, which could be useful. You'll want to run Modest, though, if you're going to use Ice Punch, because you want to be able to OHKO most Salamence sets. Without the Modest boost, you are going to be missing out on some of the bulkier Salamence sets, namely Dragon Dance. So that's important to note. Sub Punch, Thunderbolt, Substitute, Focus Punch, and then your choice of Ice or Fire coverage or Thunder Wave. This is primarily to lure in something like Blissey or Tyranitar, and then go for a solid Focus Punch into it. This set runs a kind of weird amount of speed. 240 EVs plus Hasty gets you to 336. This is faster than Adamant +1 speed Tyranitar. It's also faster than some Gengar sets that are trying to speed creep that. I don't know if you need exactly this much, but I also haven't played around with the calc to figure out if more attack or more special attack really matters. So, and I sort of doubt it. So I would I would just stick with this if you were gonna do a sub punch Electabuzz. Um, Although I also recommend that you experiment though, because we find a lot of interesting things when we experiment. Um, the You might be wondering, should you run max speed on Electabuzz so that you don't lose to every single Dugtrio? Well, one of the unfortunate things about Electabuzz is that it will speed tie an adamant Dugtrio if it has 252 speed. So you're not always even getting away with being faster to get your Ice Punch off. And you are pretty confidently going to die to an Earthquake. So there's not too much that Electabuzz can do about that. Now, granted, not every Dugtrio runs max speed. You could actually go back to my Dugtrio video if you would like to see some alternative spreads that are running a little bit slower for the sake of living certain Ice-type coverage from particularly Blissey. So you might be able to exploit that, and that's kind of where this sub-punch idea is coming from. There are some Dugtrio that you might outspeed, and you could 2-hit KO with Ice Punch if you have it. So keep that in mind. Final set here is the Mixed Sweeper, and this is using the perfect coverage, quote unquote, that I was talking about in a previous slide. Bolt Beam, Grass, and Fighting. That is solid. It's going to hit a lot of really good Pokemon. With a mild nature, which is minus defense plus speed, Electabuzz has a 93% chance, 94, to one-shot 4 HP investment Tyranitar after 3 layers of spikes. That is, like, pretty good. It is a little weird, though, to only go that far. Like, why not get all the way to 100%? But like, what you'll see is that you kind of need the speed and special attack EVs. And Electabuzz, unfortunately, is just a few points short of being 100% consistent. Although one thing you could also do with this attack investment is if you get a crit with Cross Chop, you can 2-hit KO Snorlax in the sand. If instead you run Focus Punch, I think 2 Focus Punches is going to kill Blissey. 2 Cross Chops does not necessarily kill Blissey. So yeah, that's important to note. If you opt to go for the mild nature instead, the modest nature instead, which lowers your attack stat, you still get 2-hit KOs on like bulky Tyranitar sets with Cross Chop. So like if you prefer to have some defensive investment, then, or at least not steal from your defensive investment, then you could opt to go that direction instead. The special attack is to one-shot a DD Salamence after Sand, and any Salamence that runs less defensive investment, which is most of the other Salamence sets, they'll just straight up die. So that's really cool. And then this speed stat 216 is basically required if you're going to use Electabuzz. You could opt to run a plus speed nature and then take out of the speed EVs if you would like. If you're not going to run a benchmark for your special attack that you need, then that's advisable. We're going to outspeed the base 100s that don't have a speed boosting nature. So we get to 300, they get to 299. You could opt to go to 301, which would catch Celebi, who kind of does this, where they go to 300 speed. Although that is not a super duper common Celebi set anymore. Most of the time they tend to go faster than defensive Gengar now if they're going to run a plus speed nature, which goes to 309, which you can outspeed if you would like, but you're going to have to cut into your special attack investment in order to do that. So I don't know if I would recommend that. You could also cut into your attack investment if you don't care about hitting the ranges on Tyranitar. And yeah, that's kind of going to be the base for what I show you next. This is a mixed attacker, but it's completely different, but also still mixed attacker. So, as you'll see, I kept the special attack and the speed investment, but I significantly lowered the attack investment so I could get some special defense. And you might be saying, like, okay, well, what's the point of that? Like, 65, 85 is not exactly a very bulky Pokemon. And, you know, I agree with you, but this is going to matter for the thing that I want Electabuzz to do. So I'll go more particular. Excuse me for a second, actually. It was getting hot in here talking about Electabuzz. I had to take my jacket off. There you go. There's a BKC-ism before we even get to the battles. This random pause in the middle of the video that I'm not going to edit out. So thank you to my Ryan Gosling BKC for validating this method in a video. Anyway, let's go back actually to talk about the moves. So specifically, Thunderbolt is going to OHKO pretty much every Aerodactyl, Charizard, Cloyster, Gyarados, and offensive Starmie set. There are some that could maybe run a little bit more HP or a little bit more Spadef to turn it into a roll. But generally, you're going to OHKO all of these Pokemon. With Sand or with a high roll, you will one-shot Moltres and defensive Starmie. It's pretty good. And then we are going to two-hit KO all of Milotic, Skarmory, and Suicune. They generally will not be able to boost past, or maybe they can boost past in the case of Suicune with Calm Mind, but even with a lot of Spadef investment, they are struggling to get out of 2-hit KO range from Electabuzz because Electabuzz just does so much damage to them. With Ice Punch, we'll OHKO most Salamence, which is what I was explaining before. The DD set generally is going to run about 116 HP EVs, which gets it into the roll range for Electabuzz. I believe it's still favored for Electabuzz, but with Sand, you are guaranteed to finish off the Ments. We will OHKO an offensive Flygon, and we have a less than favorable roll for defensive Flygon. I believe it's about 30% that you will get the OHKO there, but that's still good because a chance to OHKO is a lot better than no chance to OHKO, especially when you're talking about a Pokemon that has a Stab Earthquake to hit you back with. With HP Grass, we have a roll to OHKO offensive Swampert, but most of the defensive Swampert sets will still live even after 3 layers of Spikes Chip, so they're taking less than 75 much of the time. There's some of them you still have rolls to kill if you get that chip, but it's not advised that you try to 1v1 Swampert even though you have HP Grass. If you catch it coming in with an Ice Punch or an HP Grass or a Cross Chop, you might put it in range to die to HP Grass, and you are faster than Swampert. I mean, obviously. So you can opt to go for HP Grass there. Or if you had Chip on it from a previous encounter with a different Pokemon, then you can go for it. But I would generally not go healthy Electabuzz versus healthy Swampert, because Swampert Earthquake, even with no investment, is going to ice Electabuzz, ironically. In any case, Cross Chop, that's the big move there. It's rare for an electric type to have ice and grass coverage on the same set, but to have Cross Chop as well to have a strong move into Tyranitar is very rare. And with this investment, which is basically, it looks like I'm just sacking the attack stat. Like it looks like I'm running a Pokemon that does not have a physical attacking move at all. But Cross Chop is important for Tyranitar. If Tyranitar is a minus defense nature with no HP investment, which is some mixed Tyranitar, although I should mention that many mixed Tyranitar will run a minus Spadef nature or potentially a minus speed nature. So it's not like not every mixed Tyranitar here, but Cross Chop plus T-Bolt is a virtual guaranteed KO after leftovers. I think if you literally min roll both Cross Chop and T-Bolt, then you might miss the one shot. But if you get higher than the exact minimum roll on both of them, which is a very, very low chance to happen, you will get the KO on that particular Tyranitar. Now, there are some rolls with spikes, depending on how many layers you get, and depending on what Tyranitar it is, that maybe matter, but I will say just in general, you are going to 2-hit KO pretty much every Tyranitar. Not the Magneton the Fridge set. I don't know if they made that, but I have to keep mentioning it because that is diabolical. Living that Gligar Earthquake in that one replay that I saw, that's evil. I should note here that because we have such low attack investment, it's not really worth clicking Cross Chop into Blissey or Snorlax when they're healthy. Like if Blissey is like you explode on it and it's down to 30%, then yes, certainly you can click Cross Chop into it. But both of them are like at best 3-hit KO'd if you have Sand up. Snorlax is also not even a guarantee that you get the 3-hit KO if you get really unlucky with your rolls. But in any case, that's the argument for Cross Chop. Even though we're not running like basically any attack investment, it is still worth it for Tyranitar. Hidden Power Grass is not going to do enough. So anyway, the defensive stats here. Why did I pivot all into Spadef? This is going to help us survive 2 Surfs from a standard Milotic after Sand damage, which is kind of important because it means that an Electabuzz, if Sand is up, can switch in to Milotic, who's clicking Surf, and then still win the exchange because it's faster in 2-hit KOs with Thunderbolt. So you can Thunderbolt, you can take the Surf from Milotic, you will always live as long as you don't get crit, and then you can Thunderbolt again to finish it off, which is potentially an avenue that you would want to go, particularly in an endgame. You don't necessarily want to do it while your opponent has plenty of switch-ins to Electabuzz, because, I mean, going Electabuzz on Milotic screams that you're clicking an electric type move, and many teams have a ground type, so yeah, keep that in mind. But I do think it's worth having that. We will also live we will better live like Suicune Surfs if it's like a defensive Suicune with no investment. Potentially helps with Swampert Surfs, and there are a couple other special attacks that will take slightly better for this. So that I think it's worth it to go there. The attack investment, we're a little bit less consistent against Tyranitar because we don't have as many rolls to OHKO, but I think that's generally worth it when I can have my Electabuzz be better against the water types. There are plenty of Pokemon that have moves to hit Tyranitar. There are not so many Pokemon that have moves to hit the water types. So this is kind of my argument for why running more Spadef on this set is valuable to me as opposed to the attack. I'm going to be honest, I don't quite remember why I opted for 4 attack EVs. I think that it changed a role slightly in Electabuzz's favor, maybe against like a certain Tyranitar set. So that's why I have the 4 in there. You could put that 4 into the speed if you would like to speed creep other Pokemon that are like speed creeping the same thing that you are. I guess you could put it into special attack, but it doesn't really change any significant roles, so it doesn't really matter. And you could put it into HP or defense as well. Just you want to note that. But the team structure here, this is going to be another rock spam idea. I think rock spam is pretty solid, especially when you have Pokemon that can eliminate Swampert. And while Electabuzz is not necessarily the best at eliminating Swampert, it is pretty good at luring it in by clicking electric type moves and then hitting hard with a HP grass. Then you also have Ice type to handle Flygon, who is another enemy of Rock Spam. So I think Electabuzz actually fits pretty well on a Rock Spam team. So that's kind of where the idea for why use Electabuzz comes in. Not to say that you can't use it on other team styles, but I think that other team styles don't benefit as much from Electabuzz's unique traits. So we have a lead bulky DD T-Tar, which is trying to bait a switch to Dugtrio, especially against teams that have a Zapdos lead. And then we can eliminate Dugtrio early on in the game. So I think a lot of times when I use, especially me, when I use a Pokemon that's Dugtrio weak, I kind of rely on Porygon 2 as a crutch to eliminate the Dugtrio. But Porygon 2, by my estimation, is not a fantastic Pokemon. Like, it's definitely good and has its place in OU, maybe not as a staple OU Pokemon, but there are a lot of times when running Porygon 2, you were just like, man, I wish I had Blissey instead, or man, I wish I had an offensive Pokemon instead, or man, I wish I had some like a better Paralysis or Toxic Spammer instead. Because Porygon 2 in the non-Dugtrio matchup is a lot less valuable. Not useless, definitely not, but not as valuable. So I wanted to try to do something where I can use Electabuzz, who is very Dugtrio weak, but not lose immediately to Dugtrio coming in and eliminating my featured Pokemon. So Tyranitar is really good at luring Dugtrio in, and with the bulky set, we will live in Earthquake and we can kill back. If we Rock Slide into the Zapdos as a Baton Pass or Hard Switch to Dugtrio, we can kill with Earthquake, but if we miss, I have Double Edge as the last move so that we can guarantee a KO on Dugtrio. So even in the 90% world, or I mean, I should say the 10% world where we don't land our Rock Slide on Dugtrio, we still have a backup because we can Double Edge. In any case, we have Skarmory and Jirachi to form a defensive core. We have Spikes on Skarmory, which, I mean, you should run Spikes on Skarmory. And Wish with Jirachi. So this is a defensive Jirachi this time, which is a Pokemon that I don't use as much as I probably should. But I think Jirachi is actually really nice for a team like this that has so many bulky attackers. Like Donphan, for example. Yeah, Donphan's a very strange Pokemon. You don't see it too commonly. A lot of people prefer to use Claydol, but Donphan has some really, really unique traits of its own. Primarily, the 90 HP, 120 defense is really, really strong. You're a much sturdier rock resist than things like Swampert and Claydol, and you also have Rapid Spin. So, like, I think that Donphan actually works pretty well for this team that is in need of a spinner and is in need of some additional defensive investment. You know, it's not too difficult for a Fizz offense team to eliminate Skarmory. But it is pretty difficult for a Fizz offense team to eliminate Skarmory and Donphan. There are very few Pokemon that are good at beating both. Swampert maybe being one of them, but offensive Swamperts are going to fold to our Electabuzz, so that's quite good. We have CB Arrow in the back, which is the basically the staple of Rock Spam. You pretty much need Aerodactyl if you're going to have this Rock Slide spamming team. And yeah, that's basically it. I should note though that Electabuzz is kind of incentivized to trade with defensive water types, particularly Suicune and Milotic, because this team does not have a water type switch in. The best you have is Jirachi, and Jirachi is fine. It can switch into some, but because it's a Pokemon that is liable to get trapped by Dugtrio, and it is a Pokemon that needs to do other things defensively as well for this team. You can't rely solely on Jirachi to handle all of the water types. So there are going to be some situations where you're going to have to sack Electabuzz to get rid of a Suicune or a Milotic in order for this team to win. Um, but you know what? That's fine. Like every Pokemon has a role, and sometimes the role is to trade. And as you heard me say a lot in my previous video about Jirachi and Doom Desire, Pursuit Tyranitar, you set up the sand, you eliminate Gengar. If you do those things, perfect. Electabuzz, same idea. You eliminate the bulky water, perfect. Like that's all you. That's pretty much all you need Electabuzz to do. So yeah, that's I think plenty of time spent on Electabuzz here. We are going to move on to the battles now, and we will be playing some new music. Wow, that is a little bit louder than I kind of expected, but that's why we have audio editing. I do edit the audio a little bit when I submit these, so don't say I don't do any editing. In any case, here is our first game. We're up against Fat John, who has the fire. They don't call him Fire Eater. I don't remember, but this is a really cool Heart Gold Soul Silver sprite. It looks like Magmar, so kind of thematic in a way with Electabuzz being a counterpart to Magmar, a part of the Magmar Jinx Electabuzz trio, of course. Anyway, let's go into the battle here. Lead Metagross versus Tyranitar. Okay, so there are a lot of people who feel a lot of different ways about what you should do in this situation. I am a huge proponent of switch the Tyranitar. I don't think that you get much out of predicting Metagross to do anything other than Choice Band Explosion or Meteor Mash or Earthquake here. Uh, if you predict the Metagross to Rock Slide or Agility and Earthquake, that's cool. But what are you gonna do on turn 2, right? Like you're still in this 50-50 situation. Um, so I generally say switch the Tyranitar here, but against lead Metagross, I do not like switching to Skarmory because if it explodes, then it successfully Houdinis the Skarmory. Houdini is a set particularly lead Choice Band Metagross, which has enough attack to one-shot Skarmory with Explosion, and it's called Houdini because it's a magic trick. It makes your Skarmory disappear. I think actually it might have been that the person who was running this on the ladder very commonly named it Houdini, but I choose to believe that that's why they named it Houdini. So I switched to Jirachi here, and I do successfully call out that this is a Houdini Metagross. Now, losing my whole Jirachi is not great, but I do get to go to Skarmory and spike up. My opponent will do the same. I have a faster Skarm, so I will taunt on the next turn. I could have went for taunt to begin with to stop the spike from being up, but I would rather not reveal taunt if they're a faster taunt Skarmory, and I would also rather not lose my opportunity to get a spike up if this team has some switch in to Skarmory that will stop me, like Zapdos or, in worst case scenario, Magneton. Granted, Houdini, Metagross, and Magneton getting paired together is a little bit rare, but it's not impossible. In any case, I can go ahead and Drill Peck the Claydol. Claydol is not going to be favored in this matchup. I can just get the spike back up and then Drill Peck it on turns so that it stays into Rapid Spin. But a Regice comes in, and I will go to Electabuzz to resist the Thunderbolt. And at this stage, I'm like, well, the jig is up. Electabuzz is in. I kind of have to just click. And I'm willing to sack the Electabuzz here because I feel like it's not going to do so much for me against a Regice team. So I will go for Ice Punch to get Chip on Claydol, and it goes for Rapid Spin. And a very underrated part of Electabuzz, frankly, a part that I forgot, because I was fully intending to die to Earthquake here, is its ability Static. So if you're more familiar with modern gens, particularly Zapdos in modern gens, you will know that Static is a really evil ability. Any contact move, you have a 1/3 chance to get paralyzed if you click it into a static Pokemon. And this was the 1/3 chance that the Claydol gets paralyzed here, which is really, really cool because I can go to something like Donphan and outspeed it, or I could go to Skarmory and lay the spikes, wait for a turn where Claydol gets fully parried, and I get extra momentum there. So in this case, while I was willing to sack the Electabuzz earlier, now that Claydol is so weak, Regice being really the only counter to Electabuzz that's been revealed, I'm actually going to save the Electabuzz here. Switch into Skarmory, who takes the Earthquake, I mean, as well as literally anything could. And then I can just spike up until this Claydol gets fully paralyzed. My opponent does not opt to stay in to wait for that turn to happen, so they will go to Tyranitar, and I will roar because I feel like the worst thing Tyranitar can do to Skarmory in this position is Dragon Dance. And I do not want to allow my opponent to get a bunch of Dragon Dances off. I will go to Tyranitar on Regice, and Regice reveals Thunder Wave. Which is not great. I can double edge because it hits a lot of the potential switch-ins, primarily Claydol, and because we're both paralyzed, I'm actually faster. I'll go for Dragon Dance, anticipating a switch to Skarmory because I can fire off a +1 Rock Slide as it's forced to roar me out. Now I know from earlier that I'm faster, so I can taunt the Skarmory to stop additional spikes from being laid. And Claydol comes in, it's so low, it's paralyzed, I will go for Drill Peck. And my opponent predicts me to switch to probably Tyranitar, goes for an Earthquake. That's a little bit of a wild click from my opponent, but you have to play for your opponent to choke sometimes, especially when you're on the back foot, so I understand it. Against Regice, I can just lay all 3 layers. And at this stage, I'm kind of okay to sack the Skarmory, so I will take a Drill Peck, and I get a lucky critical hit. Now I can go to Donphan, who should be faster than Regice, and I can threaten to spin away the 1 layer that I have. But instead, I will just go for Hidden Power, because I'm not trying to not kill the Regice and take an Ice Beam. Claydol can come back in and Rapid Spin, which is a little unfortunate for me. So it may not have paid off so much to sack my entire Skarmory for that play. But I'm kind of in a position where Electabuzz is threatening to win the game. I can go for Cross Chop against Tyranitar, who goes for a Dragon Dance. I can switch to my own Tyranitar at this stage and take the Earthquake. Granted, I don't really care about taking the Earthquake. I just want to sack Tyranitar so I can safely go to Donphan. My opponent kind of had a 50-50 in there where they could have Dragon Dance again, and had they done that, I would have been in a pretty hairy situation because they're going to do so much damage to my Donphan. Donphan should still live +2 whatever from Tyranitar, but like it's getting a little dangerous. Crit chances are crit rolls are making it tough for Donphan. But my opponent can't really afford to do that because if I stay in with Electabuzz and click Thunderbolt or Cross Chop and kill the Tyranitar, then my opponent will simply just lose the entire game to Electabuzz. So identifying that, I will go to Tyranitar, which gives me the best momentum to get into Donphan, eliminates some possibilities for Tyranitar to get a lucky critical hit and beat the Donphan. I go down to 2% HP, but this is kind of the same problem for this Tyranitar. If it chooses to Dragon Dance again and I don't get paralyzed in Earthquake, then he will simply lose the game. So my opponent has to kind of go for Earthquake here, and then I can go to Donphan. My opponent will now go to Claydol, who walls my Donphan because I have Hidden Power Rock Earthquake coverage. I will go to Aerodactyl here. If that was an explosion, kind of tough, but like that's kind of the way that the game goes. I will opt to go for Rock Slide. Yes, Double Edge would have killed, but Double Edge would have potentially allowed Skarmory to come in and be annoying, maybe spread Toxic. It also would have potentially allows Tyranitar to come in and click a Dragon Dance on the revenge kill. So Rock Slide in my estimation is the best click because I could get a flinch or I could get the paralysis. I'm I think slightly favored to do so, and I only need to hit 2 Rock Slides and have one of a flinch or paralysis happen to get through the Claydol. Um, kind of odds maxing. Maybe BKC would not recommend that, but I think I can still win the game with just Electabuzz here. Thunderbolt is threatening to KO the Skarmory. And it does. Suicune will come in as the last Pokemon here. And at this stage, I might lose the game. So I will go for a Thunderbolt crit. I get a Para, actually, which is really nice. But my opponent decides to go for Calm Mind, which basically guarantees that they lose the game. If they had Surf to kill my Electabuzz, which actually it's an interesting idea here. How much does Surf do to my Electabuzz set? With 80 defense or SPDEF. It is an extremely favorable roll to kill. They possibly don't if they get the minimum roll, but like they are extremely favored to get the KO in this spot. In any case, Electabuzz wins the game there. Another Thunderbolt kills the Suicune. Another Thunderbolt basically kills the Tyranitar as well. So that was good. I think my opponent's out there was to Surf into my Electabuzz, and then I would have to go Donphan. Donphan might not pick up the KO with Earthquake, depending on the Suicune set. And 2 Surfs from Suicune will certainly kill my Donphan. So I think actually my opponent could have won that. But Electabuzz comes in clutch here. So that was really good. The next game here, Tyranitar versus Zapdos, which is the matchup that I'm talking about here. Except my opponent baton passes to Metagross. Takes basically nothing from Rock Slide, but it reveals no item. In this situation, it could be a Houdini Choice Band Metagross, but I'm willing to go to Skarmory because Skarmory's going to have a tough time getting spikes up if this is a Zapdos, but maybe potentially a Magneton team. So I would rather just get my one spike here. My opponent reveals not to have Magneton, probably, and goes to Zapdos. I can switch to Jirachi here, who takes Zapdos' Thunderbolt pretty well. And I can threaten a paralysis with Body Slam, although the Zapdos will paralyze my Jirachi for its troubles. Not great, but it's okay. We can work around this. I'll go for another Body Slam, and I catch the Snorlax on switch, which is really nice. Paralysis maybe arguably doesn't affect Snorlax as badly as other Pokemon because it's so slow to begin with. But it does eliminate potential turns from it. So I can go for Spike. It self-destructs right away, which is kind of interesting. And with Skarmory, I will stay in and go for Roar, not allowing the Salamence to get a Dragon Dance if it has it, which I think is fine. 2 spikes is plenty good enough for this team, which I'm viewing to be like a variant of Blue Offense with Zapdos, perhaps instead of Magneton. And 2 spikes is great because this team generally does not have a spinner. I can go to Tyranitar, who's threatening to one-shot the Salamence with Rock Slide, and Salamence's Brick Break is not nearly going to kill. So my opponent will switch to Swampert, and I will actually go for a Dragon Dance. This reveals to not have an item, so it's Endeavor Swampert, and I do not want it to get behind a substitute, so I will go for Double Edge. Now it gets a speed boost and should be faster than my Tyranitar. Lands its Hydro Pump, crit did not matter. And I could go to Aerodactyl, who is faster than +1 Swampert. Double Edge will kill. I was expecting Metagross to come in, but in fact Salamence comes in. I will go to Jirachi, who takes everything but Fire Blast pretty well. If they go for Fire Blast, fair play. I'm down to sack the Jirachi at this stage. But I will go for Body Slam, potentially get a para on Salamence. I don't get it. unfortunate, but this is good chip because Electabuzz can come in and it's threatening with Ice Punch. Um, Granted, it was threatening with Ice Punch anyway, but this is the question that I have for you. What play would you make in this situation? I want you to pause, think about it, maybe even leave a comment saying what you would do at this stage. So I think that there are basically two plays that are reasonable to make here. Um, Maybe three, but Electabuzz, it has Ice Punch, which will kill the Salamence if it stays in. Thunderbolt is going to two-hit KO the Salamence, and we should live any one hit from this Salamence because Dragon Claw Fire Blast is almost never going to run Earthquake. That like you have Fire Blast to hit the Steel types. Like you don't need Earthquake as well. Um, so we're going to live any one hit as long as it doesn't crit. Um, But knowing that Electabuzz probably has Ice Punch here, my opponent could switch to Metagross. Metagross would take an Ice Punch really well, and I wouldn't be able to kill it back with Thunderbolt. And then I'm potentially going to have to lose a Pokemon. My opponent is up a Pokemon, so they could even go for Explosion and trade down, so I'm down to Aerodactyl and Donphan, which I'm not confident will beat the combination of Zapdos, Salamence, and whatever's in the back. So for me here, I like clicking Thunderbolt. Now, there's also maybe an argument that you could switch to Aerodactyl, which threatens to Earthquake the Metagross, but also, like, that's also a 50-50 because Zapdos or Salamence could come back in. So I don't really love that play. It's technically possible, but I think it's a little bit unnecessary. So I actually click Thunderbolt here. And Thunderbolt catches Metagross, and I'm going to two-hit KO it. Um, and my opponent kind of has to sack it at this stage. They go to Salamence, which communicates to me that their last Pokemon does not handle Electabuzz well. So I can safely stay in an Ice Punch. Now, there's a potential that this was a max speed Salamence, but if it's max speed, it's going to do even less with Dragon Claw, which is probably its best move to hit Electabuzz. So I'm not scared of it, even if it is max speed. Tyranitar comes in. And with the -1 attack, I'm actually not going to do that much with Cross Chop. And I could miss it, which would be really, really bad. And I have a perfect switch into it in Donphan. So I can go to Donphan here. And I'm going to take an Earthquake on the chin. And I will Earthquake back, and I'm easily going to 2-hit KO. So my opponent does not really have a play at this stage. I can simply go for Earthquake to finish off the Tyranitar. Zapdos comes in. I could opt to sack the Donphan, going for HP Rocks, and then either Aerodactyl or Electabuzz should finish off the game because both outspeed and kill the remaining Pokemon. So, yeah, that's actually a pretty solid game there, and Electabuzz put a lot of pressure on my opponent. There are not very many Pokemon that have the combination of being faster than Salamence, threatening to kill it with an Ice-type move, and having a move that can hit Metagross and still be good against Salamence in that situation. So you would need an Electric type, and Electabuzz also had the coverage for Swampert if I needed it in this case. It also had the coverage for Tyranitar if I needed it. So, like, Electabuzz actually might have been the best Pokemon for that situation. Some Pokemon maybe could have done something similar. And in the context of this, Donphan kind of erases the need to be able to hit Tyranitar hard. But yeah, it did kind of force my opponent to intimidate the Electabuzz. Because otherwise, Cross Chop was threatening to end the Tyranitar if it was the switch in to begin with. So, uh, yeah, really, really good display for Electabuzz there. And then finally, we're up against Seldenami, who I know on the ladder as somebody who runs some weird teams. As if I'm not somebody who runs weird teams, but this team I'm about to show you from Seldenami is very weird. Um, so let's play. Lead Minun. Minun is, I believe, an NU Pokemon. It has basically no niche in OU as far as I'm aware, but Minun is going to do something kind of interesting here. So, I have Tyranitar, they have Minun. They're going to Baton Pass right away to Hariyama. I'll go for Earthquake, which does a lot to Hariyama, and it doesn't have an item. So this communicates to me that this is some sort of berry Hariyama with a lot of attack investment. Not a lot of defense investment. It goes for Rest and reveals Chesto Berry right away. I can get a Spike Up pretty comfortably against Hariyama, and I see Jump Bluff. I'll stay in trying to Drill Peck this Jump Bluff in case it misses Sleep Powder, but it gets it, so, and that's fine. I can go to Jirachi here, who is threatening to paralyze a lot of Pokemon. I could Body Slam, and if I get the paralysis on Minun, I'm faster than it, even after the agility. I can simply go for Wish, which gives me options to switch, but that was potentially a throw because Baton Pass finds its way to Hariyama. And Hariyama is going to Belly Drum. Belly Drum, Hariyama at this stage is threatening to basically sweep my entire team. I don't have anything faster than a +2 Hariyama, as does basically nobody. And +4, or sorry, +6, the 4 times attack, does a lot of damage. Donphan is guaranteed dead to Cross Chop. So I kind of just have to stay in at this stage and accept that Donphan is probably going to die. And I'm going to have to I'll rely on sand damage to finish off this Hariyama. If it goes for Rest, that will stop its sweep because I can go to something that potentially threatens to finish it off. But Donphan is going to have to be the lamb for the slaughter here. But my opponent reveals Brick Break, which does not always kill Donphan, as we see, and Donphan gets the kill there. And at this stage, my opponent's team is kind of cooked because it relies a lot on Minun to pass an agility boost to a threatening sweeper. And Minun being paralyzed and at 50% is not going to find very many opportunities to get the agility and baton pass. Jump Bluff will come in. I can save my Donphan. Don't have to sack it here. And my opponent goes for Encore. If I'm going to get Encored, I might as well get Encored into a good move. So I will go for Fire Punch, which is super effective and gets the burn on Jump Bluff. Now Jump Bluff is on a timer, kind of. I mean, if it gets Leech Seed off, it's kind of fine. My opponent goes for Encore again. I will not stay in. I want to switch to get rid of the Leech Seed, and I would just Rock Slide to finish off this Jump Bluff. Suicune comes in. Suicune should heal back up to full with Leech Seed. I can go to Electabuzz at this stage, though, and it's a, I believe Vincoon is the one that has Substitute. I always get my Suicune sets messed up, so forgive me if it's if that's wrong. But Electabuzz is going to live a Hydro Pump and Thunderbolt and break this up. In fact, my opponent is Surf, and I will live a second Surf. So I can just safely go for Thunderbolt again. Minun comes in, but it's dead to another Thunderbolt. So I would just get the kill there. Then my opponent goes to Metagross. I think at this stage I view Electabuzz as being pretty valuable, so I could have saved it there, but instead I decide to stay in and go for Thunderbolt to hit the Metagross. I had a chance to paralyze it with Thunderbolt, and my opponent goes for Meteor Mash, which hits my Metagross, or my Electabuzz, and Static comes in again and paralyzes the Metagross, which means that Donphan outspeeds. I can come in and safely click Earthquake to finish it off. That is really, really good. I also had the opportunity to go to Tyranitar and do that. Otherwise, I would have been forced to go to Aerodactyl, who is not as sturdy and generally Earthquake is, I mean, it's fine into the rest of his team, but I'd like to be clicking double edge if I'm going to be locked in. With Donphan, I can just stay in here and get my damage off. Marowak can't do anything really other than set up a Swords Dance, and I have plenty of Pokemon who are faster than it, Aerodactyl being one of them. So I can just go to Aerodactyl Double Edge, and I win the game at this stage. This Suicune, sub rest is possible, but not very common, and Suicune cannot click substitute in the face of Aerodactyl. It would have to come in, live the double edge, surf, and then the combination of Tyranitar and Jirachi is threatening enough to win this game. And that's even presuming that this has enough defense EVs to take a double edge after spikes, which is possibly not the case. So that was a very interesting team, and I think this was really cool to show that we can sack both of our featured Crapper Mons and still win the game. But they both served very, very good roles. If I didn't have basically exactly Donphan, I probably just lost to the Hariyama there. And if I didn't have Electabuzz, then I would have been in trouble versus the Suicune Metagross pair. So that was really good, and I was pleasantly surprised with how Electabuzz turned out. Now, could I have switched it out for Raikou or Jolteon and got the same results? Potentially, but I do think that the static and the cross chop and the ice punch all contributed to Electabuzz doing what it did in this uh, session here. So I think it was really nice. And once again, I'd like to thank everybody who's been watching for 100 subscribers. I know I'm getting 200 views on a video, though, so that tells me that half of you are not subscribed. And if you subscribed right now, I could get to 200, which maybe that'll be the incentive there. If I get to 200, I'll do another unranked Pokemon. Because honestly, this was more fun than I thought it would be. And I think that Electabuzz was a really good mix of maybe not OU viable, but still having good niches in OU, which I think is maybe what the thesis of this channel is right now. That there are some Pokemon that some sets that are underappreciated, some Pokemon that are underappreciated that can still do a lot of good in OU. So yeah, the Electabuzz is kind of the culmination of what we've got so far. So thank you to Electabuzz for providing for some awesome content. And again, thank you all for watching. We will see you for the next video.